Clara Wren's 30 days at Ravensmere Hall nearly ended after 30 minutes. A private letter addressed to a royal commissioner was discovered inside her trunk, and the Duke accused her of stealing it from his locked study. A servant watched as Clara faced him alone in the entrance hall. She did not plead. Instead, she held the envelope toward the window and revealed a violet thread trapped inside its black wax, the same flaw found in a dozen suspicious orders issued in the Duke's name. Someone with access to his seal had planted the letter. The Duke refused to trust a stranger, but granted her 30 days to prove the forgery. If she failed, she would leave without wages or a reference. Clara accepted because she had nowhere else to go. The heat from her bedroom fire loosened the stolen envelope, revealing a message meant for someone inside Ravensmere Hall. Make certain the Duke appears unfit before midsummer. Clara read the sentence twice without touching the paper. The room assigned to her stood above the servants' passage, narrow enough that she could reach the bed from the washstand in 2 steps. A large fire had been lit before her arrival. Someone had wanted the wax to soften here. Footsteps sounded beyond the door. Clara folded the message along its old crease and slipped it into her sleeve just as the handle turned. Lord Sebastian Vale entered without knocking. He was the Duke's cousin and heirs presumptive, a handsome man whose pleasant expression never seemed to reach his eyes. I heard something fall, holding his candle high enough to inspect her trunk. Then your hearing is more remarkable than mine. His gaze moved to the fire. My cousin was generous. Most men would have summoned the magistrate, but innocent men would want to know who had used their seal. For one heartbeat, Sebastian's smile vanished. His grace has endured a difficult year. Confusion has become common in this house. A prudent woman would not increase it. After he left, Clara searched the hearth and found a burned fragment of violet silk among the coals. Her father had taught her that evidence became worthless when handled carelessly. For 12 years she had copied contracts in his legal office, checked seals against registers, and watched powerful men insist that false words were genuine whenever the lie benefited them. The final case of her father's career had begun with black wax and a violet thread. 3 months later, Edmund Wren had been accused of altering a noble marriage settlement. His clients abandoned him. It failed, and he died, believing his daughter accepted the judgment against him. Clara had accepted nothing. A bell rang below once, paused, then rang 3 times. An elderly maid hurried through the passage when Clara opened her door. "It is the Dowager Duchess, miss. Her medicine has disappeared." From the darkness near the stairs, Sebastian answered calmly, "No, it has been found." He stepped into the candlelight holding a brown bottle tied with violet ribbon, and Clara understood then that the letter had not merely been planted to disgrace her. Her 30-day trial had provided someone with a convenient stranger to blame for whatever Ravensmere Hall was being prepared to witness. The Dowager Duchess' apartments were crowded when Clara arrived. Lady Augusta Vale sat upright in bed at 78, silver hair braided over one shoulder and fury lending colour to her thin cheeks. Andrian Vale, Duke of Ravensmere, stood beside the physician with the medicine bottle in his hand. "Miss Wren," he said, "why was my aunt's medicine in the passage outside your room, and there when I entered?" "You expect us to accept your word?" Sebastian asked. Clara looked at the bottle. The ribbon around its neck had been cut from the same violet silk as the thread in the wax. Of the physician, compare it with the mixture he prepared. The physician removed the stopper and frowned. "This is much stronger than my prescription." "How much stronger?" Adrian demanded. To leave her grace insensible until tomorrow afternoon. Lady Augusta gave a dry laugh. "How considerate," Lady Augusta said. Adrian's gaze settled on her sleeve, where the stolen letter lay hidden. For one dangerous moment she considered giving it to him. Then she remembered the ease with which the planted letter had reached her locked trunk and the physician's frightened glance towards Sebastian. Our suspicion was not proof. Her father had died because he had accused a nobleman before he possessed proof that could survive the accusation. Clara would not repeat his mistake. Adrian ordered the medicine locked away and told the physician to prepare a fresh bottle himself. "Your 30 days have begun, Miss Wren," he said. "If you manufacture another drama to make yourself necessary, I will send you to the magistrate. And if I prove someone else manufactured it, then I will listen." Lady Augusta watched him leave, when only Clara and the old lady as maid remained. I just said, "Lock the door." From beneath her pillow she withdrew a small iron key, the escritoire in my morning room. "Bring me the blue household book." Clara obeyed and found the book beneath a stack of sermons. It contained 6 months of suspicious dismissals, each marked false in Lady Augusta's sharp hand. "Why did His Grace approve them?" Clara asked. "Because the orders bore his signature. My nephew has confused signing papers with governing his house. His younger brother died last autumn. Julian was the charming one, the beloved one, the man Adrian trusted to speak when he preferred silence. And after the funeral, Adrian shut the family rooms, surrendered the household correspondence to Sebastian, and buried himself in estate work. Grief does not make him foolish, but it has made him absent." Augusta studied Clara's face. "I chose you because your father once served this family." Clara's grip tightened around the book. "My father was ruined by this family, yes." The simple admission struck harder than denial. And Wren was innocent. "I could not prove it then. I believe the proof remains in this house." Lady Augusta handed her a ring containing 3 small keys. 30 days is not generous. But it may be enough if you stop asking permission from men who benefit when women wait." The following morning, Clara began with no rank beyond that of paid companion and no authority beyond an old woman's keys. Why had the kitchen received 6 hams when the butcher's bill listed 12? Why were candles purchased weekly while half the rooms remained closed? Why did the porter record letters leaving after midnight on evenings when the Duke had written none? She checked the pantry herself, counted the linen with the maids, and sat beside the cook while comparing delivery notes. By the 4th day, she proved that the household had paid for 3 tons of coal never delivered. By the 5th, she recovered 2 months of unpaid wages hidden beneath a false total in the stewardess book. The steward, Mr. Pritchard, blamed a careless clerk. Clara asked to meet the clerk and learned he had been dismissed 6 weeks earlier by an order bearing Adrian's signature. By the 7th day, servants had begun bringing her small irregularities. Found in the wrong cupboard, a letter collected by an unknown rider, a tray sent to a room officially unoccupied. Each fact meant little alone. Together they formed the outline of a hand moving through the house while its master looked elsewhere. He encountered Clara in passages at impossible hours, once carrying ledgers, helping a scullery maid bandage a burned hand, once standing on a ladder to inspect a locked transom above the correspondence room. "Companions do not climb ladders," he said. "Do forged letters, Your Grace, yet they continue leaving your study." He steadied the ladder despite himself. Clara showed him scratches around the transom latch. Someone had been entering from the disused music room next door. Unlocked it. Dust lay over the floor except for a narrow path near the shared wall. Behind a curtain they found a stool and a length of wire shaped into a hook for the first time. He shifted. Why did no servant report this? Several tried their complaints became dismissal orders. "You believe I signed those orders without reading them. I believe someone knew you would." It angered him because it landed where accusation could not. He dismissed her, then called her back before she reached the door. "My aunt says your father was a solicitor." Was he the Edmund Wren accused of altering my uncle's marriage settlement? Yes. Adrian's hand left the wire as though it had burned him. "You came here under that name knowing what it meant. No other name. And you expect me to believe revenge played no part?" Clara looked directly at him. "If I wanted revenge, Your Grace, I would encourage you to continue signing whatever your cousin places before you." She left him in the dusty room with that answer. On the 10th day, Adrian appeared in Lady Augusta's morning room while Clara was sorting correspondence. He carried a box of unsigned orders, and he said, it was not an apology, but it was the first piece of trust he had offered. Clara found 3 false invoices. Two contradictory instructions and a request from a royal commissioner named Sir Matthew Harcourt, confirming his arrival at the Midsummer Assembly. Adrian claimed he had never invited a commissioner. Clara removed the planted letter from her sleeve, where she had carried it for 10 days, and placed it before him. His anger arrived first. "You concealed this. I preserved it, Annan." Those are not always different things, but here they were. She told him about the fire, the violet silk, and Sebastian's visit. Adrian read the hidden message until his face became still. "I cannot simply remove a duke because his household is disorderly." "No, but it can investigate his competence if presented with evidence of dangerous decisions, missing money and sworn accounts of instability." Who would control Ravensmere during such an inquiry? He already knew. "Your nearest male relation," Clara said. "Sebastian." Adrian walked to the window. "We need proof," Adrian said at last. "On it." Clara respected him more for the word "we" than she wished to. They agreed to tell no one, including Lady Augusta, what they suspected. Adrian would sign no order without Clara recording it in a new register. Clara would compare every household key with the original inventory. Their work kept them together in the hours when rank usually separated them. She learned that Adrian's coldness was not lack of feeling but fear of failing anyone else after his brother's death. He learned that Clara's quietness was not submission, but discipline sharpened by years of being disbelieved. Arrived before affection and made affection far more dangerous. On the 15th day, Clara completed the key inventory. One key remained missing, the key to the late Duke's private cabinet in the sealed family apartments. Augusta's ivory box fitted no lock Clara had found. When she shook it, something thin moved inside. The Dowager refused to explain. "Not until you know whom to trust," she said. "Trust, Adrian?" Clara asked. "With my life." "Not yet with the truth." He still mistakes shame for duty, and a man ashamed of his family may destroy proof merely to preserve its name. That night, the dinner bell rang while the guests were still arriving for a small county gathering arranged by Sebastian. She entered the drawing room to find Lady Celestine March wearing the Ravensmere diamond bracelet. The lamps failed for less than a minute. When they were relit, Lady Celestine screamed that her bracelet was gone. Sebastian insisted that no guest leave. The search moved from pockets to rooms with indecent speed. Though someone had rehearsed it, the bracelet was found in Clara's desk beside a wax impression of the ducal signet. Silence fell with the satisfaction of a trap closing. Adrian came to her room and looked at the evidence without speaking. But Clara felt the fragile trust between them strain under the weight of what everyone else could see. "I did not take it. I know what you said about planted evidence. That is not the same as believing me." Sebastian urged him to summon the magistrate before scandal spread. He ordered Clara confined to her room. The words wounded more because he spoke them quietly. She gave him the household ring of keys. "It took me 30 days, she said. "I had 14 left. Until I understand this, I cannot allow you freedom of the house. You understand exactly what this is. You are only afraid to be wrong in public." Ice tightened. Clara entered her room, and the key turned behind her. Then Clara noticed that the wax impression found in her desk was perfect. The forged letters contained a reversed seal because they had been made from an impression. The object had been created from the real signet. Whoever planted it had gained direct access to Adrian's ring that evening. At dinner, Adrian had removed the signet only once. Sebastian asked him to cut the ceremonial pie with the old family knife. Sebastian had carried the ring to a side table with Adrian's gloves. Clara needed the servant who had stood there. She pulled the bell, but no one came. Near midnight, the lock turned. Lady Augusta entered leaning on her cane, accompanied by Dorset, the butler. "My nephew gave orders that no one release you," she said. "Fortunately, I was giving orders in this house before he had teeth." Dorset had seen Sebastian hand Adrian's gloves to a footman named Thomas. Thomas had disappeared after the search. While leaving, he had pressed a folded note into Dorset's palm. "West Gate. Midnight." They were already late. Clara took back the key ring and led them through the old service stair. On it, At the west gate, they found Thomas unconscious beside the road, alive but bleeding from a wound at his temple. In his coat was a purse containing £50 and a signed confession declaring that Clara had paid him to steal the bracelet. The signature was his, but the words were not. When he woke briefly, he whispered that Sebastian had ordered him to place Adrian S. gloves in the music room. He had seen Pritchard take the signet and press it into warm wax. He could say more. Horses approached. They hid Thomas in the gatekeeper's cottage while riders searched the road. Clara could have fled with him before dawn instead. She returned to Ravensmere Hall because the Royal Commissioner arrived 3 days early. Sir Matthew Harcourt entered carrying forged letters, ruined accounts, and statements depicting Adrian as dangerous. Clara interrupted Sebastian's mournful testimony and placed Thomas' false confession on the table. It described the bracelet as stolen from Lady Celestine, although Sebastian had chosen that jewel only after the confession was supposedly written. Contradiction exposed a planned trap, but did not yet identify its author. Sir Matthew ordered a public hearing at midsummer and required Sebastian to countersign Adrian's major decisions until then. After the commissioner asked Clara to remain, she refused until he ordered the door opened and the guard removed from her room. He did both before the assembled servants. Miss Wren was confined on evidence I should have examined more carefully. That failure was mine. She is free to move throughout Ravensmere Hall and speaks with my authority in all household matters until this inquiry ends. Sebastian protested that Adrian was surrendering control to a suspected thief. No, Adrian said, I am returning control to the only person who has exercised it honestly. Public correction did not erase Clara's hurt, and continued cooperation possible. Adrian then placed the master ring of keys in her hand. You have 13 days, he said. So do you, she replied. Clara reconstructed delivery routes and medicine purchases, while Adrian obtained sworn statements from every dismissed servant. Thomas recovered enough to identify Pritchard as the man who struck him. However, remained missing after being removed from Clara's desk during the confusion. Lady Augusta finally surrendered the ivory box. Inside lay half of a legal document bearing Edmund Wren's handwriting. It was a memorandum written 20 years earlier concerning a trust established for widows and children of soldiers killed under the late Duke's command. The trust held land now worth nearly £80,000. Edmund had discovered that Sebastian's father was diverting its income before he could present the proof. A marriage settlement was altered using Edmund's seal, ruining his credibility. The second half of the memorandum contained the names, dates, and confession necessary to restore him. It had been hidden inside the Ravensmere diamond bracelet. That was why the bracelet had been displayed. Sebastian had not merely wanted Clara disgraced, he wanted the last surviving proof against his family. Clara sat very still after reading her father's words. Adrian knelt beside her chair, not as a duke performing sympathy, but as a man accepting responsibility. My family allowed an innocent man to carry our shame. Your family did more than allow it, and built their safety from his ruin. Yes, Adrian did not soften the truth. If we recover the memorandum, I will clear his name publicly, even if it condemns mine. Words are easy before the cost arrives. Then judge me when it does. Clara looked at him and saw no demand for forgiveness, only a promise to act. It was the first moment she allowed herself to love him, and because love could weaken judgment. She immediately returned to the evidence. The missing bracelet had to be hidden in the sealed family apartments, where Clara had noticed trays being delivered to an officially empty room. Adrian broke the seal himself. Fresh ash lay in the grate, and the cabinet stood open. On the desk was the violet ribbon, once used to bind family documents. Its cut edge matched Clara's burned fragment. At a place, they found the blackened remains of household orders, but no memorandum. Sebastian appeared in the doorway with Sir Matthew and accused them of destroying evidence, anticipated their search and turned it against them. Sir Matthew saw Adrian in a forbidden room beside burned papers and ordered the apartments secured. By evening, the commissioner announced that the midsummer hearing would determine whether Adrian should lose control of his estates. Sebastian appeared to have won. Worse, Lady Augusta collapsed after drinking tea carried by a maid who swore the order came from Clara. The physician saved her, but she remained unconscious. Sir Matthew confiscated Clara's register. Richard vanished with the original books. At the lowest hour, Clara sat alone in the morning room staring at the empty ivory box. Adrian entered and told her a carriage was ready. I should flee. I think Sebastian will have you arrested before dawn. I can protect you only by sending you somewhere he cannot reach. Protection that removes my choice resembles imprisonment. Because she was right, then choose. Stay and face him, or leave and preserve yourself. I will not command either. Clara turned the ivory box over in her hands. The lining smelled faintly of violets. By the velvet, she felt 3 shallow ridges. She cut the stitching and found a narrow brass plate engraved with numbers. Not a second document, a printing key. Her father had anticipated that paper could burn, and corresponded to pages and lines in the blue household book, entries written over 20 years by Lady Augusta. Read in sequence, they formed a record of payments, and the location where Sebastian's father had hidden the original trust ledger. The final entry named the chapel crypt beneath the memorial to Julian Vale. Sebastian could destroy a letter, but he could not remove a stone monument without attracting notice. Clara and Adrian entered the chapel before dawn, with Dorset and Thomas. Behind the memorial tablet, they found a tin case containing the original trust ledger, and Rennes' complete memorandum, and a confession signed by Sebastian as father. The papers were dry, intact, and authenticated by 3 seals recorded in the family register. Adrian reached for them. You should carry them. Clara understood the cost of that gesture. He was placing his family's honor and future in the hands of the woman his family had wronged. She took the case. We still need Sebastian to expose his own knowledge. He will claim these were fabricated by my father. Clara formed a plan around the antagonist's greatest strength, his certainty that everyone else was less clever. News to spread that the crypt had been empty. Adrian publicly dismissed Clara and announced he would accept Sebastian's supervision at the hearing. In private, I detected every witness and made 3 certified copies of the recovered documents. At the midsummer assembly, Ravensmere Hall filled with magistrates, tenants, noble families, and servants. Sebastian had expected a quiet legal proceeding. Clara ensured it became a public reckoning because public ruin required public correction. Sir Matthew opened the hearing by reading the contradictory orders and accounts. Sebastian spoke with sorrow, describing Adrian as a grieving man, no longer capable of judgment. Adrian did not defend himself. He admitted signing papers unread, acting his servants, and confining an innocent woman because false evidence had frightened him. The admissions shocked the room. Sebastian smiled, believing shame had done his work for him. Adrian said, "Negligence is not madness, and confession is not incapacity. I will answer for what I failed to do. My cousin must answer for what he did deliberately. Miss Warren, the house is under your authority. Present the record." Clara walked to the center of the hall, carrying no visible document. Sebastian mocked the absence of proof. She began with the forged letters. Their reversed seals came from an impression made in violet wax. The violet silk came from the ribbon stored in the late Duke's cabinet. Pritchard had access through the music room transom. Thomas testified that Sebastian ordered Adrian's signet carried there during dinner. The physician admitted that Sebastian instructed him to increase Lady Augustine's medicine and threatened to expose his gambling debts. Tradesmen produced true invoices, dismissed servants, presented matching false orders. Each fact removed another place for Sebastian to hide. Still, he denied knowing anything about Edmund Wren or the soldiers' trust. Clara then placed the ivory box before him. "You searched this box 3 nights ago," she said. "I have never seen it. Then you cannot know what it contained, of course not." told Sir Matthew this morning that my father's memorandum was worthless because the second page lacked Lord Ravensmere's seal, Sebastian answered too quickly. Because it does. Silence moved through the hall. Clara had told no one outside their protected circle that the memorandum had 2 pages. She had said nothing about a missing seal. Sebastian knew because he had removed the second half from the bracelet. Confidence broke. For the first time, he reached toward the box, then stopped. Clara asked Lady Celestine to examine her bracelet. It had been recovered that morning from the false bottom of Pritchard's document chest. At its clasp remained a torn corner of paper bearing part of the confession and Sebastian's fingerprint in violet sealing wax. Sir Matthew compared the torn fibers with the complete memorandum from the crypt. Matched. But Clara had saved the decisive proof for last. She produced the original trust ledger and confession, authenticated by Lady Augusta's old entries, the late Duke's seal, and a retired regimental chaplain already named in the document. Sebastian accused Adrian of sacrificing family honor for a servant's revenge. Adrian crossed the hall and stood beside Clara. No, I am sacrificing a lie that should never have been called honor. Sir Matthew ordered Sebastian and Pritchard detained for forgery, attempted fraud, assault and interference with a royal inquiry. The physicians withdrew their petition concerning Adrian's competence. The soldiers' trust was restored, including every missing payment with interest. Edmund Wren's name was publicly cleared before the same county families that had repeated his disgrace. Clara did not weep until Sir Matthew read the declaration aloud. She had imagined triumph as something bright and fierce. It felt instead like setting down a weight she had carried so long that she had mistaken it for part of her body. And Adrian did not touch her until she reached for his hand. By midsummer, Clara held every key at Ravensmere Hall before speaking of marriage. Adrian appointed her independent superintendent of the household at a salary greater than Sebastian had paid himself. Restored the dismissed servants with compensation, and placed the household accounts under dual signatures so no master could again hide negligence behind rank. Lady Augusta recovered and returned to her morning room, aimed credit for everything except the dangerous parts. Adrian then stood before the entire household in the entrance hall where he had once granted Clara 30 days. I accused Miss Wren without proof, confined her when courage required trust, and allowed my grief to become an excuse for abandoning my duty. She owes this house nothing. This house owes its survival to her. Handed her the master key, but did not close her fingers around it. Keep it, return it, or leave with every wage and reference you deserve. The choice is yours. Clara accepted the key, because freedom did not always mean walking away. Sometimes it meant possessing the power to leave and choosing to remain. She made Adrian wait until autumn before answering his proposal. When she finally agreed to marry him, she retained her own salary, her father's recovered property and legal authority over the trust. Their wedding was held in the chapel where the truth had waited behind stone. No one gave Clara away. She walked to Adrian by herself. Later, Clara returned the day's keys to the ring at her waist and found one small iron key she no longer recognized. Adrian smiled and led her to a room overlooking the gardens. It stood. Edmund Wren's restored desk, his cleared legal register, and a brass plaque bearing his name without accusation. Beneath it, you said every room should have an honest purpose. I told her, this one is yours. Clara laid her hand on the desk that had survived her father's disgrace and felt no need to disappear, defend herself, or prove she deserved to remain. The Duke had given his penniless companion 30 days. By midsummer, she ran the house. By autumn, she had taught its master that love without trust was merely another locked door, and this time every key belonged to her.